Hey y'all, welcome to Paige's Perspective, where I help you find your inner strength to cope with life. I recently posted in our community a behaviors over substances rant and just wanted to share it here and elaborate just a bit more. It started out by saying this is not another addiction group. We actually have members who have been impacted by partners who are emotionally immature and or show narcissistic traits that have nothing to do with addiction. We've been somewhat brainwashed to overcomplicate what's right in front of us. Society tells us to understand the root cause of someone's behavior, to diagnose it, label it, and empathize with it. Addiction, alcoholism, trauma, anxiety, depression, ADHD, attachment style, childhood wounds, nervous system dysregulation, whatever the label is this week, it becomes the explanation or the excuse. And yes, these things are real and can impact how someone shows up, but they are not a free pass to harm others, stay stuck, or avoid responsibility. Here's what we need to get back to. Behavior tells the truth. That's it. Not the intention, not the diagnosis, not the childhood story. What do they consistently do? You can spend an entire life decoding why someone lies, yells, gaslights, neglects, avoids, manipulates, betrays, etc. But if you don't look at how those behaviors impact you, your life, and your children, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of analysis that doesn't lead to change. So let's simplify it. If someone's behavior makes you feel unsafe, unseen, or disrespected, that's the problem. If they consistently violate your boundaries, don't show up, or blame others, that's the problem. If they hide behind a diagnosis to avoid accountability, that's the problem. The diagnosis, whatever it may be, is treatable and doesn't give anyone a pass for harmful behavior. Healing, personal development, and taking accountability are choices. The people who care about changing take action. They seek help. They change their patterns. They become self-aware. So if you've been caught in the spiral of, but why do they act this way? Try asking a simpler question. Does this behavior align with the kind of life and relationship I want? Clarity doesn't come from dissecting their past. It comes from seeing what's happening in the present. All right, so that's what I posted, but I want to kind of swap this a little bit, that personal responsibility does go both ways. So you can be overwhelmed. You can be dysregulated. You can even be justified in how you feel. But what you choose to do with those feelings still matters. So let's flip the mirror for a second, because while this conversation is about recognizing harmful behavior in other people and not excusing it just because they're struggling, the truth is we're not off the hook either. It's really easy to call out someone else's emotional immaturity and behaviors, but if we want to live in integrity, we also have to be willing to look at ourselves. Because being emotionally overwhelmed doesn't give us permission to abandon our values either. Most of us have had moments where we've completely lost it. Not because we're abusive or mean-spirited, but because we were completely maxed out. Maybe we were touched out. We were pulled in 1,000 directions, ignored, dismissed, shut down, exhausted. Maybe it was day 10 of doing everything on your own, or maybe it was the third time this week someone crossed a line. Maybe it was just everything. And so you snapped. Or you said something you didn't mean. And let me be clear, I get it. And you're not a bad person for that. You're human. You have limits. You have wounds. You have a nervous system trying to keep you safe. There's absolutely nothing wrong with feeling what you feel. But here's where the line gets drawn. Understanding why you react doesn't excuse you from how you respond. I'm going to say that again. Understanding why you react doesn't excuse you from how you respond. This is a piece that a lot of people miss because like both the person doing the harm and the one that's reacting to it. You know, you can be in pain and still be responsible for your behavior. You can feel completely justified in your reaction and still be out of alignment with your values. You can be deeply dysregulated and still decide not to let that dysregulation speak for you. It doesn't mean you have to be a robot. It means that you just have to take ownership, because if we spend all of our time saying, I was just triggered, or I had too much on my plate, or I was dysregulated, we start to build our own version of the excuse culture we're trying to escape. And I don't say this to make you feel guilty. I say it to call you up, not to call you out, because you're not powerless. You're not stuck. You're not destined to keep reacting the same way forever. You are a person with values, with vision, with choice. And every time you choose to stay grounded, even when it's hard, every time you pause instead of yell, every time you say, I need a minute, instead of unleashing your anger on someone, you're breaking a cycle. You're healing in real time. You're embodying the very thing you've been asking for in someone else. We all mess up sometimes. That's okay. But we repair, we reflect, we recommit, we learn, we make changes. Because growth isn't about never making mistakes. It's about taking responsibility for what we do after the mistake. So ask yourself, what do I want to model for my kids? What do I want to be proud of at the end of the day? What would it feel like to respond in a way that aligns with who I say I want to be, not just who I've been? That's the real shift. We can't always control how we feel, but we are responsible for what we do with those feelings. And when you start showing up with that level of clarity and ownership, that's when things really begin to change. Now, I know what you may be thinking. You may have a what the fuck Paige face. Maybe you feel as though someone who has harmed you doesn't deserve a healthy response from you, but it isn't for them. It's for you. We get so caught up in wanting others to hear us that we forget to respond in a way that aligns with our values. Plus, we can't see clearly when we are wrapped up in our emotions and reactions. We have more power to respond in ways that we truly want to respond. But again, it's for us, not them. So if you've blown up, you've become super petty, you've lost your shit, I hear you and I get it. But we do have to take responsibility for that, for ourselves. The blow-ups don't help us see clearly. They are emotionally driven responses and can keep us from growing if we don't recognize how it goes against our values. You know, I've encouraged people to be angry, yeah, but not aggressive. That anger is meant to guide you to make healthier decisions for yourself. We don't get to blame people for our reactions because that is the one thing we actually have control over. If we continue blaming, there is no growth. We become stuck. We feel powerless. Trauma responses may be an explanation, but they are not an excuse. If we're in an environment that continues to push our buttons, we have a responsibility to make a decision on how we respond, either with words or actions. We don't like ourselves when we respond in a way that goes against our values, which means something must change. All right, so here's what I'm going to leave you with. You're allowed to feel it all. You're allowed to be pissed off, overwhelmed, exhausted, especially when you've been carrying way more than your share for way too long. But how you respond, that part is on you. And not for them, it's for you. You don't stay calm or grounded because they deserve it. You do it because you're trying to build a life that actually feels good. You're trying to be someone you can be proud of, not someone stuck in the same chaos you're trying to escape. Because let's be real, when you explode, when you get petty, when you say things that you don't mean, you don't walk away feeling better. You walk away feeling worse. Like, it might feel justified in the moment, but it doesn't bring long-term contentment. It doesn't bring clarity. It brings more noise and more chaos. So if you've had those moments, and trust me, we all have, take a breath, own it, learn from it. That's not shame, that's growth. And this isn't about being perfect. But your behavior speaks, so let it say something that actually reflects who you are. Let it say, I may be hurting, but I'm still in control of how I show up. I don't need to scream to prove my point. I know my truth. I'm not living like this anymore, and that starts with how I respond. That's where the shift happens. That's where the clarity comes in. That's where you take your power back. All right, y'all, I'm proud of you for even thinking about this stuff. I know it's difficult. It's not easy. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this week. That's all I have. Until next time, I'm Paige. Bye.